Today we're looking at 7 songs overloaded with cheery melodies, but don't let the upbeat exterior fool you, as like a Trojan horse, when you invite them in and sit with them a while, their sinister lyrics creep up on you. Now, a quick disclaimer, these are pretty dark subjects, so once you hear the true meaning of these songs, the melody might not hit you the same way. You won't be able to go back to the blissful state of ignorance, but hey, at least you'll be able to ruin the song for others. I'd also love to hear from you about any other secretly bleak songs in the comments. Who knows, I might do a second part down the line if I run out of ideas. With that out of the way, let's start with the first one on the list, the most obvious one, Foster the People's song Pumped Up Kicks, a gentle, upbeat melody that deliberately masks its dark lyrics. I know this one's meaning is pretty well known, but stick with me as it still deserves some unpacking. If you didn't know, the singer Mark Foster wrote this from the perspective of a troubled teen, Robert, with homicidal thoughts. If you've seen the film The Drama, picture that character, but switch the gender. In Mark's words, he says, "I was trying to get inside the head of an isolated psychotic kid." A crumb of context, the band's connection to the issue of youth violence is that the bassist Cubby Fink, hope that's not his birth name, actually had a cousin who survived the Columbine school massacre in '99. He said that his cousin was actually in the library when everything went down. Now, the sensitivity of this topic at the time sparked outrage that they were glorifying school shootings, but Foster just wanted to shine a light on it. In his words, he wanted to understand the psychology behind mental illness because it was foreign to me. The song's also an amazing platform to have a conversation with your kids about something that shouldn't be ignored, to talk about it in a loving way. I agree with him, as shying away from difficult topics doesn't make them go away. To quote the next man on the list, Thom Yorke, the more you try the eraser, the more that you appear. Onto the song itself, it starts hotter than a $2 pistol. Have a listen.
Rabbit's got a quick hand. He'll look around the room and won't tell you his plan. He's got a rolled cigarette hanging out his mouth. He's a cowboy kid.
It's not confirmed, but it's likely that the name Robert is in reference to the actor Robert Redford, the Sundance Kid, in Butch Cassidy and I don't remember the rest. Having a quick hand means he, like a cowboy, is good in a duel. Although being a school shooter and not telling anyone his plan, it's nothing like a duel. Not that I've been in either. Still, the shooter thinks he's cool, in love with the image of a cowboy with a rolled up cigarette hanging out his mouth. Onto the chorus, he's eerily cheerfully warning the victims to run faster than my bullet and outrun my gun. With the repeated line that I'll butcher by stripping the melody away, all the other kids with the pumped up kicks, these victims that the shooter's gunning for are wearing Reebok pumps. At the time, these were expensive shoes that contrasts with his own poor upbringing, alluded to in the second verse with him saying, "Dad works a long day." The tragic irony is that the popular kids will be needing their expensive athletic sneakers more than ever when they're running away from the homicidal maniac. Next up's Thom Yorke's song, Harrow Downhill. I know if it's a Thom Yorke song you wouldn't expect happy lyrics anyway, but this one being based on a real tragedy takes it to another sinister level. The song's about Dr. David Kelly, a weapons inspector turned whistleblower who exposed an erroneous dossier used by the UK government to justify the Iraq invasion, claiming that they had weapons of mass destruction. You can't say these lists don't have variety. Anyway, tale as old as time, right? Well, it gets more formulaic as 2 days after vocalising his doubts on the credibility of the research, he meets his maker on Harrow Downhill in Oxfordshire. The name of that hill really is on the nose. The song's told from the point of view of Kelly, who warns the listener to avoid being the whistleblower like him, or you'll end up facing the same fate. Tom lays this out in the first verse.
Don't walk the plank like I did. You will be dispensed with when you've become inconvenient. Up on Harrow Downhill, near where you used to go to school, that's where I am.
Tom, channeling Kelly beyond the grave, then asks the listener, did I fall or was I pushed? He then asks where's the blood, as despite there being hardly any blood when he died, the post-mortem says that he cut his wrists with a knife. Suspicious, right? Well, it gets worse when you see what Kelly said off the record after his second trip to Iraq. In the dossier, it said Iraq was capable of firing biological and chemical weapons within 45 minutes. That's less time than it takes me to decide what film to watch. But when Kelly visited 2 mobile weapon laboratories, he was unhappy with the description of the trailers, saying, "They're not mobile germ warfare laboratories. You couldn't use them for making biological weapons. They don't even look like them. They're exactly what the Iraqis said they were, facilities for the production of hydrogen gas to fill balloons." Anyway, sticking my head outside of this dark rabbit hole and into another one, next up is Nirvana's song Polly. Maybe upbeat melody is a bit of a stretch for this one, but when you look into the initially light-hearted sounding lyrics and realise Polly wanting a cracker isn't about a real parrot's hunger for savoury snacks, you'll wish you could go back to that ignorance. If you didn't know, Kurt wrote this about the kidnapping of a teenage girl called Polly. He was inspired by Gerald Friend, who kidnapped a 14-year-old girl, kept her captive, and tortured her with a propane torch. You can hear the real events of that harrowing story seep into the first verse. Have a listen.
Polly wants a cracker. Think I should get off her first. Think she wants some water to put out the blowtorch.
I think it's the fact that Kurt's speaking from the torturer's perspective that makes this so morbid. It's like pumped up kicks dialed up to 11, with the dryness of his signature delivery adding another layer of hopelessness. It's bad enough knowing that she needs water until you hear it's to put out the blowtorch. Anyway, as a palate cleanser, let's look at a less morbid one, OutKast's Hey Ya, an upbeat dance track that's got a sad meaning. To fast track the meaning, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Here's what one part of the duo, Andre 3000, has to say. In his words, it's about some people who stay together in relationships because of tradition, because somebody told them. You guys are supposed to stay together, but you pretty much end up being unhappy for the rest of your life. So it's about the lunacy of continuing a relationship past its expiry date. It's summed up in the line, why are we so in denial when we know we're not happy here? You gotta hand it to Andre for making such a hit based on that premise. It was even Nickelodeon's theme music for a while. Of course, it isn't the darkest topic compared to what else we've talked about, but still. I think the best part of the song is this bit.
If what they say is nothing is forever, then what makes love the exception?
Andre sees the cognitive dissonance of it all, believing that nothing's forever except your love. That somehow breaks the law. You'll hear nothing's forever if you're going through something bad, but never when love's involved. But then again, in the song, he recognises he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for his mum and dad sticking together, so maybe he's envious of that as he doesn't know how to. At number 5 is John Lennon's Beatles song, Run for Your Life. Okay, this one's a bit more on the nose, but I think it deserves to be on this list for the upbeat melody and for how out of left field the direct lyrics are for the time it was released. Beneath its cheerful rock and roll surface is a threatening and insecure narrator warning his girlfriend that he would rather see her dead than to be with another man. I guess it is a precursor to John's song Jealous Guy, but with less of the shame that it's even a problem. This plays out in the second verse.
Well, you know that I'm a wicked guy and I was born with a jealous mind. And I can spend my whole life trying just to make it toe the line.
To give him credit, I don't think he was fond of the lyrics either, saying, don't worry I won't do the accent, it's my least favourite Beatles song, one song I most regret writing. For me, it's a guilty pleasure still, and if I switch off the ethical side of my brain and ignore the jealousy, it's great. Also, George said it was one of his favourites of John's, and the sheep that I am for his opinions, I'm going to agree. Number 6 is Debbie Harry from Blondie with One Way or Another. On the surface, this one's presented as a playful pursuit song, but after the fact, Debbie Harry said that it was inspired partly by an unsettling experience with a stalker. It could be because it's fresh in my brain, but I'm picturing John as the stalker here. To me, the specificity of the lyrics proves she must be speaking from experience. Have a listen to the bridge about how she's going to give him the slip.
I walk down the mall, stand over by the wall where I can see it all, find out who you call, lead you to the supermarket, check out some specials and wrap food, get lost in the crowd.
The last line could be her insinuating that he's the one who eats rat food, as he's a lower form of being who doesn't deserve human food. Whatever she meant by that, it shows how the power dynamics have shifted and how she's no longer scared of him. The final one on the list, well done if you're still here by the way, is Suzanne Vega's song Luca. Following the trend of the others we talked about, the gentle melody is a misdirect. Luca's a child speaking to a neighbour trying to explain away signs of domestic abuse. Although it's a fictional character, it was based on a real child who wasn't abused but Vega noticed seemed distant and different from the other kids. It was also semi-autobiographical, with Vega saying that the song was also inspired by her own childhood suffering abuse from her stepfather. What I think sets this song apart, especially from others on this list, is how understated its descriptions are. Vega communicates abuse more powerfully through the calm, matter-of-fact descriptions than any graphic description could do. Listen to the chorus to get an idea of this tragic acceptance of Luca's situation.
They only hit until you cry. After that, you don't ask why. You just don't argue anymore.
All straightforward stuff, so I'll leave you with the third verse that shows Luca's tragic acceptance of his suffering, making excuses for his injuries and getting defensive with the questions from others.
Yes, I think I'm okay. I walked into the door again. If you ask, that's what I'll say. It's not your business anyway.
Thanks for watching, and if you want to see any of my other lyric breakdowns, check out this playlist here. See you next time.